Another day, and another BBC representative indulging in professional deceit to help protect Israel from the heinous war crimes against the occupied population of Palestine. This time, the person facing widespread condemnation for her professional misconduct is one Lucy Williamson. The report in question is this BBC News Online piece headlined Families Leave Jenin Camp in Israel West Bank Push. What comes to your mind when you read this headline first? That these families have decided to leave Jenin of their own volition? They just felt like visiting their relatives and friends in another city just because they were feeling bored? What do you mean by families leave Jenin camp? When in reality, they have been forced to displace themselves from their land by Israeli terrorists, also known as the IDF, so that these terrorists can carry out their ethnic cleansing in the occupied West Bank without any hindrance. Isn't that the reality? Or am I making it up? But you wouldn't get that idea from Williamson's headline or the report. Williamson's report also did not capture the Israeli brutalities, so brilliantly covered by more honest news platforms such as Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera has been quoting local officials to report the Israeli atrocities, including the fact that Israeli terrorists have now destroyed 70% of Jenin roads. The videos are everywhere for everyone to see. The only reason I cannot show it here because the YouTube will penalize me and restrict my reach. That reach is very important for me. And you know, if you have been following Janta Ka Reporter on Telegram, you know that I have been sharing those videos there. Only people who are choosing to look the other way are the likes of Williamson and her other BBC colleagues. Otherwise, why would you choose such a shameful headline if your intention wasn't to hide Israeli war crimes against the people they occupy? I asked Williamson to clarify her stand. She refused. So you can now form your own opinion on whether this was an editorial oversight or a well-designed propaganda masquerading as journalism. Meanwhile, social media users are very, very angry, and rightly so. I am angry. The only reason why everyone else and I am angry because it's our money that is funding the BBC and that is paying the salary of the likes of Lucy Williamson. And they have absolutely no shame in just reporting the facts honestly and objectively. That's why I'm angry. And that's why the social media users have rightly slammed her and slammed her professional dishonesty. One user wrote, you can see it on the screen, this headline story, West Bank Push, was written by Lucy Williamson. This is the same journalist who framed the murder of Hind Rajab like this, found dead. Yes, she had written, and I will come to that point later. Another user wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter, this is the textbook case of ethnic cleansing. But this is how the BBC describes it. Pathetic. And this is what another user wrote. Lucy Williamson is a confirmed Zionist. Most BBC correspondents are. The word occupied will not leave her lips, as she believes Israel has the right to annex the occupied West Bank and expel all the Palestinians. Now that's exactly what it was. And what is happening in Jenin and the other parts of the occupied West Bank is that the occupied population are being expelled from their rightful land. But the likes of Williamson will not include that or capture that element into their headlines or the report. This is not the first time that this BBC representative, and I refuse to call her journalist because she does not deserve that honor, in my opinion. Journalism is a noble profession. More than 120 noble men and women have sacrificed their lives in Gaza for being journalists, bravely reporting Israeli war crimes. They were never invited to be and embed with the Israeli terrorists, nor would they have chosen to be embedded even if there was an opportunity. Williamson was one of those BBC representatives that Israeli terrorists had chosen to accompany them. when they carried out unspeakable war crimes at Al-Shifa hospital last year. You can see her. And the so-called BBC's gold standard journalism from inside the military vehicle of Israeli terrorists. That's the gold standard journalism for BBC these days. Notice how she is peddling Israeli propaganda without any caveat, without any clarification, when she talks about the presence of Kalashnikovs. Yes, presence of Kalashnikovs and other dodgy laptops in the MRI room. Not once did she clarify that these were Israeli claims, and she was in no position to confirm its authenticity. Also notice the addition of another video of men sifting through laptops in a video. That video appears from nowhere. For an unsuspecting mind, this would look like these laptops were discovered while she was there. Such dishonesty, my God. This is not even professional dishonesty, but bordering criminality. Such propaganda had catastrophic consequences on millions of people living in the occupied territories of Palestine.
We're in an Israeli military vehicle inside the Gaza Strip now. They're taking us towards Gaza City. This area, we're passing through an area where the ground operation first began weeks ago now, and since then the Israeli army has fought its way methodically towards Gaza City, towards the gates of the Shifa hospital, and that's where they're taking us now. We're still being told to keep our lights off. Are we going this way? Well, the Israeli army has been really searching through this hospital. You can see they've had to force the door of the MRI room here to get inside. They've been looking for evidence of this being a Hamas base, a place where Hamas planned attacks. And they say that among the things they've uncovered are more than a dozen Kalashnikovs, grenades, personal protective equipment, some of it with the Hamas military brigade insignia on it. You can see some of them here hidden under these bags of medical supplies. We're also told that there have been laptops found with some information about the hostages. They also found some recent files that suggest this may have been a Hamas operating base as recently as a few days ago.
More recently, this is how she reported the Israeli atrocities from the occupied West Bank. No mention of the ICJ ruling declaring Israeli occupation illegal. All efforts on what Israel says. No caveat, no health warnings to Israeli claims, despite Israel's track record of indulging in fake news and misinformation campaign in the past.
This has become another front that Israel is concerned about. You mentioned there the UN chief, and international pressure has already begun mounting on Israel 24 hours into this operation. The UN chief calling it a dangerous development. The EU's foreign policy chief also wading in, as well as voices from here in the West Bank, the Palestinian Prime Minister calling it a direct threat to the lives of patients and staff when Israel surrounded hospitals and blocked medical workers in the way that was seen here yesterday. But Israel says this is a counter-terrorist operation. It appears there's a lot of fears within Israel about the possibility of Iran funding and arming the armed Palestinian groups here. And the last thing Israel wants to see in the middle of a widening regional war is this old front becoming a new kind of threat. So far today, there's no sign of this operation ending. I'm here in Jenin. Behind me is the refugee camp where last night we heard a series of loud explosions, gunfights taking place. And overnight, we also understand that 5 people have been killed in Nur Shams refugee camp in Tulkarem, including the head of the Tulkarem brigades, a man called Mohammed Jabba, who Israel had been after for a long time.
I'm still not able to understand how people go to bed and manage to have peaceful sleep after such brazen dishonesty in their professional conduct. You have to also see Williamson's so-called reporting on the brutal murder of 6-year-old Hind Rajab by Israeli terrorists in February this year. You know what happened. If you don't know, I will tell you that Rajab and her family members were fleeing Gaza City when Israeli tank attacked their vehicle in February this year. Israeli savages executed Rajab's entire family, uncle, aunt, and 3 other cousins. Rajab and another cousin of hers were alive. Rajab started calling desperately the Palestinian Red Crescent Society for help. She was desperately asking for help. You have to listen to her desperate calls for help in her final hours. I haven't been able to muster courage to listen to that audio in full. Israelis killed Rajab's cousin, leaving her stranded in the car for several hours. And when paramedics finally arrived to rescue the 6-year-old child, Israeli savages killed her with those paramedics on 10th of February. You know what Williamson's headline on Rajab's murder read? Hind Rajab 6 found dead in Gaza days after phone calls for help. That's all. If that was the headline, see what she wrote in the first para that we call intro in our profession. The first para, the intro read, a 6-year-old girl who went missing in Gaza City last month has been found dead along with several of her relatives and 2 paramedics who tried to save her after they appeared to have come under fire from Israeli tanks. She wrote appeared to have come under. She never misses any opportunity to cast doubt in your minds, in the minds of the readers, when the perpetrators are Israelis. How cruel! How can one be so cruel? How can one be so pathetic? That's why I ask, what kind of humans would go to this extent to hide the savagery of a group of terrorists masquerading as soldiers? When did my former employer turn this ugly, this horrible, and downright despicable? That even the brutal slaughtering of a 6-year-old angel doesn't move you to become an upright journalist. Gaza has lost more than 20,000 such angels to Israeli terrorism in the last 11 months. Has the BBC coverage reflected this brutal reality? No. And you and I fund this once reputed news organization with our hard-earned money called license fee. Why should the BBC not be defunded? That's my question. That's it from me. My heartfelt thanks to those who have supported this platform on buymecoffee.com and Patreon, and a request to others to do the same. I can't emphasize enough why it's important for all of you to support this platform if you want a credible alternative news platform to grow. The address for buymecoffee.com is buymecoffee.com/Janta Ka Reporter, and the Patreon address is patreon.com/Rifat Jawaid. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.